That is this: if the real guides work with the totality of life, then it is possible that other religious groups know the real guides, perhaps under different names. Could it be that the immortal being living on the wilds of the Himalayas, known as Babaji, who is termed the master of all masters, a strange being who appears to the devout and teaches them, the sages and masters of the East, to talk about him. No one knows his origin, nor does he belong to any religion. It teaches all those whose hearts yearn for the beyond. So, uh, could there be a connection between Babaji and River Zatas?
Well, again, these are ideas we have here. This is like the social mind. We have these ideas. And so we categorize things, accordingly because the social mind. But the reality of life, I see myself as I see, just like what I'm doing here, I see it as a process I'm going through. That's really what it is. And the new presentation will last for as long as it lasts, whatever. It's not important. It's not something to be immortalized, because really I see that there's so much more to it. This is a starting point, and it's not like the business world. Like realistically, when Paul left, that was it. I mean, that was his child, which was Ekankar, and after that, he was like done. Okay, and so it picked up to be whatever it's come to be. And so it's like certain individuals, they want to take this and immortalize it. Well, it's going to be according to each individual's experience. It's just like that. So I can't say what's this or what's that, because it's endless. This is the endless experience of it. So we can just do what we can do. So we can't try to encapsulate life. All right. So things are happening. So again, it's kind of like sitting at the dinner table and talking about the dinner you're having, and then also talking about, well, gee, I wonder what everybody else in the world or the universe is eating too. Do they have as good a food as we have, or whatever? Well, you can talk about that. You can philosophize and theorize, about that. But really, what does it matter? The thing is that right here, right now, you have it. And that's all that matters. And right here, right now, you have the knowledge to do whatever. And each one of us can only do what we can do. It doesn't matter what our neighbors are doing and what they're thinking and deciding. So, but eventually, as you continue on your journey, you wake up to see what others are doing. But overall, it's really the isness, because that's everything. Okay, so I see what many other people are doing, but it doesn't have an interest for me, because again, once you focus on the isness, okay, because it's everything comes from that, okay, for you, and then you will just do what you decide to do. If you want to go out there and be like Baba or Rebazar Tars or whatever, you go do it. You just go do whatever it is as you've gone through your process and woken up. And we're all in this process right here, because we can reach a certain amount of people in a particular way. And so also these individuals like Rebazar or Baba or Jesus or anybody, they're going to communicate with others at their particular level. So if they see somebody in religion, and it's just like you and I meet people every day and we talk to people every day. And so it's going to be in that relationship. And so as the individual goes on and on. Now our position here with the new presentation, because we see what's going on in the world. Okay, we see what's taking place in the world. And at the same time, most people don't see what's taking place in the world, and that is that the world is in a very desperate spot. So, our position is to try and reach and wake up as many people as we can, just for themselves. This becomes our adventure. This is part of life, but also they have free will. Okay, it's not us saving the world. There's no such thing. They have free will. And I would say that just like all that manna that came from heaven or whatever the idea is, you start labeling it. It really came from the sky because it's a physical phenomenon and whatever. Okay, great. But I would say that not everybody that saw it ate it because again, it's choice, isn't it? It's really time to get real instead of just something happening and you just start making up stories that sound good. People usually go with the stories and they don't even pay attention to really what's taking place. So, but it's a choice, okay? It's none of my business. And so my position is when you ask me questions or somebody is that, I do the best I can. And basically it's like, hey, do the new you, start to gain your own experiences. And we have the books there as a reference. So I've done that part, okay? I can't figure out the whole of life for people. I can't live their life. But again, the mana and these other ideas, are they really with your real awareness and what's taking place? So, again, it's choice. Each person is going to decide, and the end result is going to be whatever. So we're just doing what we can while we're here. And again, see, when you start to look at all the things that can possibly happen or are happening or whatever, I see this, but I don't go for it. I don't put my attention there. I put my attention on the people like the people here that have stepped up and that are willing to do something and support. That's what I put my attention on. What the rest of the world is doing and considering and happening. Okay, you got mana from heaven in one part of the world. Hey, you got fracking in Fukushima, the rest of the world, and HARP and Wi-Fi and vaccines. So, hey, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of dastardly stuff. So I'm putting my attention on presenting this so people have the possibility to wake up because places become very, very dangerous. And so, yeah, see, when people focus on those stories too, that all sounds great. Or the UN delivering their GMO rice somewhere, oh, that sounds great. But the thing is that they still have a dependency, don't they? Realistically, they do. They have a dependency. So are they doing it for themselves? Or now is it that they're just going to get down and pray all the time and have this happen? And so, yeah. And is it that these so-called beings that appeared, maybe they can be the real guys or whatever, are they going to keep feeding these people? Is that the idea? And if they don't, now all of a sudden, are the people going to be happy with their gods? You see what happens in phenomena, and it does occur. It does occur. And so, because then they're going to be expecting to be fed all the time and not do for themselves. Because really, why are we in creation? The overall, we are in creation to wake up to eventually recognizing and being self-sufficient for ourselves. And Rebazar and the boys are an example of that. Or is it that we're just going to be dependent on phenomena or manna from heaven or all these other things? Well, it's a choice. If that's what you want, go for it. You want to keep your 9-to-5 job forever? Hey, go for it. I'm showing people how to become self-sufficient. And the more people that step up and support each other, just like the boys do, the more real it becomes. But again, most people, their personal life is very important to them. So, hey, go for it. You made the choice. It's all cozy or whatever. But again, I personally would not depend upon that. Maybe I would see the phenomena or whatever, or, maybe the U.S. government will fly planes over and drop dollar bills. Okay. Just like in the Batman where the Joker did it. All right. So you get that little buzz for a while, but is that going to be happening all the time? Again, it's an outer dependence. And again, this is where you see what happened with Jesus. People are still waiting over 2,000 years for Jesus to come back and fix everything. and provide everything. Is just that little attitude, there takes you away from your real awareness, so you keep forgetting lifetime after lifetime who you really are. So, what we're doing here is we are focusing on our real awareness and the all is, so that we can walk through the veil of, phenomena dependency, to where we don't need anything. And if you can imagine it, it can be so. And so this is where the real guidance comes in, because it's a big journey. Because, we've been through creation a long time. So, again, respectfully to the experiences of others, hey, it's whatever. But I can only focus on so much here, Charles. And again, as we focus on what we're doing, it will come to be so. But if we keep scattering our attention to all this other stuff and thinking that it's something more than it is, then that's what it becomes. The focus is lost, you see? And then you just stay the physical person, and you keep wondering, gee, okay, where's the next miracle coming from? Yeah, chasing miracles. So I would say that's a miracle. That's great. Have fun with it. It's like a ride at Disneyland, but I don't see where that's going to, feed them the rest of their life, but maybe it will.
My next question is about the mastery of life. Mm, I've read many things, I had read many things about the mastery of life from the spiritual and occultic groups, and they talk about the mastery of life, how this life has to be lived, and what one has to do. Well, I will not go into that, but from the perspective of the new presentation, how can how can we talk about this mastery of life? Because this life is to be lived here and in the other levels of life, and gradually into the real universe. So if we want to tell somebody about the mastery of life, somebody who has known about this kind of concept from the other parts, how can you talk about it? Can you put it to someone so that he understands uh, what this mastery of life is all about?
Well, again, you're trying to explain whatever in a capsulated version, and you really can't do that. First of all, let's look at this idea. Yes, I've heard this too, and it sounds really cool, doesn't it? Kind of like God is the Almighty. All right, that's quite a statement, isn't the Almighty, the All-Knowing, the All-Loving, the whatever? Okay, these statements. Okay. And that's exactly what they are. They are statements. That's as far as they go. People have learned to put together symbols that equal ideas, and they become statements. That's realistically what they are. And so, we make statements too. We make references, etc. But really, is it that? And so the idea of the mastery of life, when somebody says something like that, you know what it sounds to me like? Hocus pocus. In other words, they would possibly, I'll use this just as an idea. They would use the idea of Jesus as an example. Here we're talking about Jesus today, but we're really talking about the stories of Jesus, because we don't know Jesus personally right now. Okay. And so the stories of Jesus, where Jesus could do whatever, okay, and he was proclaimed the Son of God. I don't think he did that. I don't think he marketed that, but it was marketed by the systems, the belief systems here, because, hey, it worked. Okay, that's all that matters. As long as marketing ploy works, like GMO marketing, hey, that's all that matters. And it would seem as though, because what is the view from the personal side here of life? And that is that when people look out and they look at the planet they're on and the terrain and the environment here, and then they look into outer space, which they think is a universe, but it's just all blackness with rocks on fire. Really, is that what it is? And that is called the stars, but we romantically make these things into something they're not, like the moon, etc. It lights up because it's a reflection of the sun, and now we even know the moon is fake, because that's why we only see one side, because it's just a reflection. It can be 100 miles out in space. Most people don't even know. Again, you have this one-dimensional view, so the mastery of life idea would be what? Being able to perform miracles, okay, in some way, on this physical stage. Really. So, and, again, for most people, this is life. This is what they think life is. This is a simulator, okay? We've created these bodies, just like in a factory where they create, cars, etc., and other products. These bodies have been created the same way. And as one goes to the real side and sees this, how they're created on the other levels in creation, and these vehicles are necessary for us to go through this experience. So again, the idea of that and whatever, I just look, again, I look to the isness. And it's not that, realistically, it's not about the mastery of life. When you put that label on somebody, or somebody has taken that on, it's really in a way, it's really the me thing. It's like, oh, look what I can do. I've mastered life, or he's mastered life. I don't see that anymore. For me, and everybody can choose whatever they want, and I see people that are confused, and all of a sudden they get themselves into trouble too, because of all these little cute ideas. And it's like, go for it. The thing is that what I see is that I see the isness. That's what I've always focused on. And even what the guides do, that's their individual choice, but I just focus on the isness, because it's all there, and it's not about me. Life's bigger, okay? And just like the other day when we were talking, and people are asked about God and stuff like that, it's like, okay, I suggested talk about God, and it's like, agree. We know about the gods, you can visit your God, all right? But guess what? Life's bigger. And that's how I see it. My position here is really a reference. It's a privileged position. It's a privilege for me to be able to do this. That's how I've always seen it. It really is. It's a privilege to know the boys, and that's how I see it. I never look for miracles. I never look for manna from heaven. I didn't look for any of this phenomena. I didn't even go into past lives. I wasn't interested. You know what? I just focused on the isness. That's all I did. That's what got me here. And this is shown on the real side to certain people and individuals. That's because that's my intent. It's solid with that, and that's it. But in the meantime, it's kind of like in the movie The Ten Commandments, where Moses, he does all this phenomena for people. He gets them finally, after he's plagued the city and whatever. It's kind of like what I did. I see my life here kind of parallel in Moses, and I talked about that at the end of book 2, going through the same thing. Had a wife and a girlfriend, and went through all this stuff and whatever, and etc., and dealt with the issues of the day, and then confronted Ramesses, and then said, Ramesses, you don't let my people go, things are going to happen, okay? And they did. He did pestilence, and he did all this stuff. Finally, Ramesses let the people go, got them to the river, opened up the river, got them across. The bad guys were, most of them were drowned because they didn't have their wetsuits on, whatever, okay? Got to the other side. And, as soon as they got over there, it's like, wow, it's cool. It's like, okay, we're here. Moses is like, okay, now what do we do? You see, again, it's all been done for them. And so, Moses at some point sees a vision, and he goes up to the mountain. While he's gone, everybody, as usual, the one-dimensionalized, get bored, And so they create a party, of course. They have nothing else to do. I don't know where they got their light beer, but I mean, there must have been something around there. But anyhow, so they start creating a party, and I don't even know where they got the materials and the hammers and whatever. They must have brought them with them, where they make the golden calf, and they're going up and down, etc. But Moses returns, and etc. So uh, this is the basic idea of the personal self here. And yes, we do these things. And when I try to point people to the reality of life, it's like, well, what about this, Duane? And what about that? And whatever. It's like, hey, you know what? Go do whatever you want. You made the choice. But there's something that you're not seeing. And that's what I wrote about, all this referencing. So, when I look at ideas, the mastery of life, that's kind of like a course, I would say, like being a life coach. But, it's a choice. But really, a lot of these things, and again, just ask the boys on the real side. This is where people get taken away, and I see it all the time. I've seen so many people come and go because all of a sudden they got their little ideas about things. The reality of life, standing real, learning to recognize how to stand real with the all is and all the guides realistically. In the meantime, yes, they're going to baby you along. But what really does make sense when you filter through all of it, like panning for gold, when you filter through all of it, what really does make sense? Look at the sun shining. Does it make sense to have an awareness where you are all seeing, okay, with life, like the sun shining? Does that make sense? Does anything less than that make sense to you? If it does, then you're chasing phenomena. But as long as your heart and intent are there, then you're on your way because you can see it. But in the meantime, yes, you're going to experience things. But if you think that some idea or course or whatever it is greater than the whole of life, then that's a decision you've made. You see? I see these things, I do these things, but I see them for what they are. And I see what I've created. Again, I'm being very honest with people. I'm not saying that, hey, this is the great spiritual path, this is the whatever. I don't say any of that. Again, I don't even copyright the books and stuff. Hey, it's not from me. I just see the is and then I write it. I don't need reference materials. You know what? I just wait for that next moment and all of a sudden I see it. And then I write it. That's what I do. And it comes out accordingly, according to what is right now. And actually, that reference, how old is that reference, Charles? That's an oldie, isn't it? Okay. Like the doo-wops from the 50s and 60s. That's another oldie idea. And just like you said, from these different paths and whatever, etc. These are all oldies. I would say look at what is new and real now. This is what I love, and just like in my business, every time I got a new truck, and I spent the money because I made the money, but the truck meant a new life for me, and my business got better and better and better, you see. And that's how I look at it. I look at things as new. I'm not basing anything upon what I wrote in the past. It's out there, whatever, but I'm always writing something new every moment. And Ava and I, just like Ava and I mean, the pictures over the years, I mean, it's awesome what we're presenting to the world as a reference also for people in the physical sense. But it's always new now, you see? And that's how I see it. I have no past. I have no future. The future is whatever I decide it to be, but I don't see future because, like the sun shining, there's no future for the sun because it's always this isness. It's so cool, and it's everything. And to recognize that and to recognize those who recognize me as I recognize them, I see that as everything, but not from the personal side. When you see it from the personal side, you're just thinking, oh, this is it, that's it, Duane, you just recognize this. No, then you're not seeing it. No. You have to see it until it's complete within you. In other words, when there is nothing else that compares to it, then you are seeing it. But until then, what you're doing is you're comparing it to your little personal life that's going to soon be gone. Okay? Everybody's going to grow up and they're going to be gone and they're going to be soon old. So if you don't see it for what it really is, then you really don't see it at all. And this is what I base everything I do on. So the mastery of life for myself, I'm not going to be the master of anything. I'm not the master of anything. Life is already more so than I can ever consider. So where is it that this idea even equates? But again, you decide. And as soon as you decide that, that's where you go. You see, that's how things are. And I've decided that all life is an isness. And so again, Charles, the attention gets scattered, is what I'm saying. And this is why I write what I do and write so much, because you know what? The attention gets scattered, and I see it. I see people come and go. You know, all it takes is one idea, they're gone. They don't understand that you must develop yourself. You must have the courage to step up and support something real. If you don't think this is real, and I'm not saying the new presentation, I'm saying the reality of your awareness according to the real awareness of the real guides, the is, and everything else, to recognize that. Do you have the courage to step up and recognize that? It takes a lot. So at first, you're going into the unknown constantly. But there is a real side of yourself that already knows this. But you must decide to have the courage to see that, because it already is. And the sun is a great demonstration of what it already is. You see, if you can see it, but not just look at it. But that's just one reference, but really it's with you. But for the most part, what do people look for? Just like the mastery of life, they're looking for the knowledge. They're looking for the tricks. They're looking for the phenomena. You see, oh, I can do this, like Moses. I can part the Red Sea. You see, even with all of that, and people went out into the desert and whatever, they didn't know what the heck to do. And after that, it sounded great. But you know what? What did they really do? They didn't have the awareness of anything. Their life was whatever it was, and they came back for lifetimes. And I'm sure many of these people that were there are here now, still searching for whatever. And they can go on doing that. So I see that what I am presenting, it is not about me. It is that the privilege of what I'm presenting is because I have recognized what's taking place, and I have the privilege of presenting it, so I have the experience too. That's standing real with the is. That's what it is. Who will do that realistically and support those? You know, I put all those that are real, and I see the ones that are before me, because I want them to be okay. And it's not everybody. I don't support everybody, because again, many people have been given the chance here, and you know what? They just don't step up. And it's like, okay, go have fun. Go do it yourself. You think you know more than everybody else? And it's not about me. This is where the misconception is. I'm just doing my part. I'm like anybody else. And this is what's so cool. It's about all of us. But you got to take the risk to see it. You got to decide to step up, you see? And so these cute little ideas like you're presenting, and it's not a put down about you or whatever, but learn to see what this isness is and then go from there. And so, yeah, it's a huge journey. And this is where, again, people become self-convinced and they take it for granted. And this is why most people are in the membership and all these other things around the world. They think that this created stuff that has, that has been accomplished here really equals and means something, and that all they have is these thought forms. That's all. And yeah, they're real beings too, but they have free will, and this is what become their lifestyle, which is fine. Hey, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about the corporation or what Joni and Harold's doing. I'm just living my adventure to share what's possible for everyone while I'm here, and then poof, I'll be gone. And that'll be it, and everybody will think it's this or that, which they already do. and there's very few that really see it and step up and see it as real. And so, being with Ava these years, and Ava has had the courage to step up. And this is a lady that has, uh, you have a kind of a language barrier there, because interpretation is very, very important. And I look at Hessam, who came to the second Skype, and he stepped up and said, I'll do the books. And I see Hessam, and I see Hessam's heart as an example, and I see Kelsey. The thing is that this little gal just steps up, and Claudia and whatever, they're having the experience, they just step up, and no questions asked, they just do it, you see? And that's the whole idea. And so these little cute ideas about the mastery of life, I don't see that. It's almost like you are going to control life. That's what that sounds like. Oh, you've become the master. I don't see that. Someone told me that once. And she said, well, you have the position now, you're the master. I said, I don't see that. I said, maybe in 1,000 years. But, really, I don't equate to that. Because, it's not about me. It's the isness. This is the preciousness to recognize. And not the things that we have here, but at the same time we do. This is where creation becomes utilized to its fullest potential for what it is, and not trying to make it into something it isn't. But you decide, that's how it is. It can be just a whimsical thought, and that's what it is. And it becomes whatever you decide. So I'm not decided about what life is. I don't see that as something, but we do create the courses for people to go through and see if they will decide to really recognize this true reality. But those things sound good, Charles, and I know this is a lot, but realistically, this is where people become confused, and that's why, hey, look at Joseph as an example. He was in the corporation. Then he saw us and what we were saying about Joni and whatever. Then he was upset. Then all of a sudden he tries the new you, and it's working. It worked for him. All right. Now all of a sudden he's not getting his miracles or whatever he talked about, so he goes back to religion. You see? He's a great example of, okay, what not to do, I would say, is does that make sense? Has Rebazar and the boys, as an example, changed? Has the isness of life, is it different than it was when he first was introduced to it? No, but somebody changed, didn't they? And it was him. All of a sudden he goes, you might say, even further back to religion. Now it's the God thing again. Okay, so, and that's fine. It's all fine. In other words, life is for everybody. So I would say that just for me, maybe I'm selfish, maybe I'm funny, whatever. The thing being is that I see that what I see with my relationship to the reality and the boys, and I don't ask for nothing. I just ask to, really all I ask for is that let me do this. Let me complete this. And so that's all, because I want to see people succeed. That's what if I ask for something, that's what I ask for. It's not about me. I don't really care. If I'm not to get the funding, okay, fine, whatever. If I'm to get it, fine, whatever. But I will try. I will try to do everything I can, which I have. But it's not about me, because life's bigger. It's not about me. So I'm not the famous guy on stage. I'm not these TV evangelists. I'm not the President of the United States. I don't want to be. You know what? I just want to see others succeed. I just want to be able to do this to where I'm able to present it to where people do have the advantage. And it takes a lot in the physical sense, because we are in the different pieces here. It takes every individual's effort combined, and that's where you see the boys usually together on the real side. When they came to Claudia and said, well, what about Duane? Well, she had a room full of them. It was just wasn't Rebazar all the time. There's a room full of them. In other words, they're demonstrating how this is. This is a real stand-up position, okay, a real step-up position where they support each other because they have one focus, and that is to present the isness life is the best that they can. And they have to work with these self-made, limited, little tiny considerations that people create. And when you just let it go and see it like the sun shining, where is it that we need anything? But in the meantime, yes, I am creating these courses, the Vessel Project, the university, the homeschool, whatever it is. We're into everything because there's such an almost endless variety of considerations and associations and relationships out there, and people are going to relate to it in its own way. And the boys are, like over the 900 groups that I've created on Facebook, as an example. Well, I've created them in so many different ways that Rebazar can say, well, dude, on the real side, he'll say, well, here's what Duane refers to here, or whatever. I've got this reference for them in the physical sense in some way, and it can just take one idea, and all of a sudden, boom, they're on their way. They read the book, they're on their way. And so the old ideas, they sound good, but you know what? They're old. I would suggest look to what's new, and if the boys show you to go through that course, then go through it. To learn it, but keep in mind it's a reference. But when you personally think in the personal self here, like Harry on stage, oh, I'm the king, I'm the master. Hey, go for it. Anybody can do that. And that's what John Roger Hinkins did. That's what Vardankar did. That's what Mike Owens, The Way of Truth, and I can go on and on, Denami and whatever. They all did it. They're all the stars. Go be the star. I just use Duane the Great Writer as a reference. It's only a reference, is all it is, so that people have the possibility. It's not about mastering anything. And all these people, it's interesting, they call themselves masters. Well, have fun. You are the master, and you got it. You decided it. Now you got to deal with it. So me, I just look to the as. There is no me. There's the isness. I like that. You know what? Because I can just give up everything. And then I can just be wonderful and then see who else wants to be wonderful too. So that's it in a nutshell, Charles. Thank you for listening.